Thank you and welcome to this session. Um, the session is titled Unlocking the Power of Hybrid Cloud Observability. My name is Abi Wakaman from IT News Africa. I'm delighted to have you here and I hope you are ready to learn about this exciting topic. In this webinar, you will hear from three expert speakers who will share their insights and experiences on how to monitor and optimize your hybrid cloud environment using the latest tools and best practices. You will also have the opportunity to ask questions and interact with the speakers and other participants. Our speakers for today are Olumide Idowu, the CTO of Alpha Beta Consulting, LLP, Glenn Lazarus, the CEO of ATS Network Management, and Pranil Padiachi, the Chief Technology Officer of ATS Network Management. We are honored to have these three speakers with us today, and we look forward to hearing from them. Before we begin, I would like to remind you of some housekeeping rules. Please keep your microphones muted and your video off during the presentation if you're a guest. And if you have any questions or comments, please use the chat function. We will also try to address as many questions as possible at the end of the webinar during a Q&A session. Thank you for your attention and cooperation. Now, without further ado, let us begin our webinar. I will hand over to our first speaker for today, Olumide Idowu, the CTO of Alpha Beta Consulting. Over to you, Olumide.
Thanks, Abby, and thanks everyone for joining and having me here. Right, I'll be speaking. I think Abby has done the introduction. I don't need to go over that again. So I'll be speaking on the topic challenges of maintaining a hybrid cloud infrastructure. So public cloud, private cloud on premise is no longer buzzwords in the ecosystem, right? But let's also be exploring hybrid cloud in this presentation, and then exploring instead of just focusing on only their challenges, I also would like to highlight some of the advantages of having a hybrid cloud infrastructure within the organization, right? So let me start.
Sorry, excuse me, Olumide, just a second.
Yeah.
Are you able to switch on your camera?
Okay, let me see. Hold on a second.
If you can, that would be great. If not,
okay,
you can carry.
So can everyone see me? Can everyone see me?
Yes, thanks, Olumide.
Okay, fantastic. So so let me go on, right? So I said that before the short break, I was talking about the fact that every cloud, private cloud, public cloud, the hybrid cloud, they are no longer buzzwords in the ecosystem, right? But we'll be zooming in on hybrid cloud in this presentation. So I'll be speaking about the advantage, briefly describe what hybrid cloud is, what are the advantages, what are the use cases, and then I'll be focusing later on the challenges of operating a hybrid cloud infrastructure, right? So a hybrid cloud is a mixed computing environment where applications are run using a combination of computing, storage, and services in different environments. And those environments are the public clouds, private cloud, including on premises, as well as edge in the locations, right? That's edge computing, right? So that approach is widespread in the ecosystem because almost no one today relies entirely on the private cloud or on the premise. Everybody's trying to do a mix of of everything. Okay, right. So the hybrid cloud solution enable, I want to be able to migrate workloads between among these real cloud environments. I've spoken about public, private, and on-premise, allowing one to create more versatile setups based on specific business needs, right? So many organizations have been choosing to adopt hybrid cloud platforms to reduce costs, minimize risk, and extend their existing capabilities to support their digital transformation efforts. Every of us know that the digital transformation is a very hot topic, right? Since the code that has been accelerated much more since the emergence of COVID-19, right? So digital transformation has become a very hot topic for CIOs and CTOs in the ecosystem, right? So, and the hybrid cloud approach is one of the most common infrastructure setups today within the ecosystem, and that environment allows one to continue using the on-premise services while taking advantage of flexible options of storing and accessing data, applications offered by um, public cloud providers. So there's a mix of the two. You are taking advantage of continue using your premise services, while you're also taking advantage of the offerings within the that are being offered by public cloud providers, right? So let's talk about the um, benefits of hybrid cloud, right? So, I will state some few ones, right, and then we can ask questions later, right? So, hybrid cloud facilitates effective application governance. So, it allows you to decide where your applications or workloads will sit, right, and where the hybrid computing will happen, right? So, and what that does is to help you to improve privacy and ensure compliance for your regulated applications. So what that means, there could be some compliance and regulatory requirements in the country, specific country where your infrastructure is domiciled to say, okay, this particular kind of workload should be kept in country, right? But the regulator will usually come up with that kind of approach and with that kind of regulation. So if you have a hybrid setup, as you have private on-premise and public cloud, then they allows you to make a decision quickly, that will aid you in complying with the regulation that's applicable within that ecosystem, right? And then it helps you to experience improved performance and reduce latency, right? Sometimes distributed applications and remote locations benefit from hybrid cloud solutions. So you don't necessarily have to, go to the cloud. Since you have a mix, you can benefit edge computing, and the ones that are in the cloud will stay in the cloud, right? And then improve return on investment, right? So, you will get a better ROI because it's cheaper to operate a public cloud infrastructure than on premise, whereby you have to commit to capex, to hardware and so other resources, right? So you can also extend your cloud computing capability without increasing your data center expenses. That means you can go out to the cloud, to the public cloud, and operate a pay-as-you-go model. You only pay for the resources when you use them, right? And then it also engenders faster innovation, right? That means you are able to innovate faster, right? Because the public cloud models assess the latest technology like AI, right, and machine learning without having to extend or replace your existing infrastructure. And therefore, you can minimize resources and increase your productivity to speed up the development and delivery of applications where applicable. All right. So let me now proceed to talk about the challenges of hybrid cloud infrastructure. The first one is integration, and integrating private and public clouds can be very challenging sometimes, right? So because the challenge will be to integrate both platforms as a cohesive entity, right? So that's the challenge, in the integration. How do you integrate both platforms, the private, the on-premise, and the public, right? The integration is always a challenge that the IT experts deal with today, right? And recognizing that not all applications systems and their dependency will end up residing in one cloud type, right? Understanding the patterns and tools required to move processes can also be a daunting challenge for even the most seasoned IT experts, right? And adding to that complexity is the integration of legacy systems, because we all normally have legacy systems on premise, right? And then creating an infrastructure to manage this integration uh, is far easier said than done, especially if thousands and hundreds of applications are involved. Right. The next challenge is management and monitoring. How do you monitor both ends, right? You have to monitor the on-premise, the private cloud, the data centers, and your public cloud? How do you, monitor and manage, across all the platforms that make up the public cloud, infrastructure, right? Because most public cloud providers today have their native management and monitoring tools, right? And some of these are available through external facing API services, right? So, but the challenge would not be how do you integrate that with your premise of private cloud monitoring and management tools? You have to have seamless integration amongst the platform. So that's the big challenge, right? And then some customers will not want to, operate their environment or manage their environment through disparate tools. So that's why the integration is always a challenge, right? So, but however, integrating the public cloud services to existing support so procedures require effort and serious expertise, right? It's a challenge which whoever is operating a hybrid cloud environment, we have to grapple with, right? The next one is network design. So how do you ensure that you have an effective design, that takes care of movement of data amongst the various platforms that make up the hybrid cloud infrastructure? That's about the on-premise, the data center if you have that, and then the public cloud, right? So you must have an excellent network design, right? So you have to account for, I mean, the designer has to account for, several factors like network bandwidth, management between the private and public cloud, and the impact of EDHQ where, there's a certain control, and then the branch networks where applicable, network equipment requirement for each individual application will vary. So that's a challenge in network then the security implications as well. The security requirements will also be diverse. So you can see, you have to also think about data leakage, protection, data leakage prevention. That security component will also be a challenge because we are, to try to manage transfer of data amongst, the various ends that make up the hybrid cloud infrastructure, right? And since different applications will also need to operate in different parts of the hybrid cloud environment, then understanding the scalability requirements of the application will also implement the network design and so on and so forth. Then finally, the designer must understand the limitations of the public clouds when it comes to networking and develop strategies around this. So that's very fundamental. Then the fourth one is performance, right? So because you have to move data, within a hybrid cloud environment that's between data centers and the public cloud over the internet, then the speed of data transfer is likely going to be much lower, while latency will be higher. For instance, in Nigeria, let's say I am, operating on AWS or whatever, and maybe AWS, Google Cloud, GCP, or Azure. That means I have to, plan for latency, between my data center in Nigeria and the nearest region, which could be, South Africa. That's the closest, or the UK, whatever. If I'm using a public cloud that doesn't have um, region yet in Africa, so you could see latency. Latency between Nigeria and the UK, for instance, is about 120 milliseconds on the average. So you have to plan for that because if you have application sensitive, as latency sensitive applications, that becomes a big issue, right? So, but there are two essential ways to mitigate that risk of latency. One is to minimize the frequency at which data moving between the ends, among the ends of the hybrid cloud setup. That's the private, the on-premise, and the public. So you minimize the frequency with which at which data moves, and then the other is to use dedicated interconnect. You have for GCP, you have AWS Direct Connect, Azure as Express Route, right, and GCP as Direct Connect, right. So I mean, you have to leverage on that, particular kind of setup because that's dedicated. It's not over. It's not on the internet. It's a dedicated link, that has several, stringent setup procedures, right, that ensures that latency is minimized and the data has dedicated pipe to flow in between amongst the endpoint of the hybrid cloud. Okay, and lastly, you have to deal with security and compliance. And that talks about the threat of data breach. If you are moving data among the endpoints of the, the hybrid cloud infrastructure, then that means security will be an issue that you have to really, really deal with, right? So it's a very serious challenge when it comes to managing a hybrid cloud environment, because the transfer of sensitive data, right, needs to be strictly controlled via policies and procedures, which you have to strictly adhere to, right, together with your security. That's very fundamental. Then the existing security controls, such as IAM, the identity management and access management, needs to be seamlessly expanded across the platforms, right? This can be done by replacing the controls in both clouds or by using a single entity to identity management platform to manage across the endpoints, right? Because businesses in certain sectors like financial services, government and healthcare must meet different compliance requirements depending on the location, right? Depending on what the regulator says, right? With the hybrid cloud environment, you have to, ensure that the individual cloud systems and overall hybrid infrastructure configuration are compliant with those compliance regulations, right? So I mean, you have to ensure that the policies that you set, meet those regulatory expectation, right? So and that alone can be very tedious, right, for the in-house team to handle efficiently, right? So and ensuring compliance with government regulatory bodies, right, such as the GDPR, the PPOPI Act, that's Protection of Personal Information Act, is another critical consideration for hybrid cloud adoption, right? So you have to establish a comprehensive compliance, across the cloud environment to ensure that you meet the expectations of the regulator. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. If there are questions, I'm open to answer them. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. All right, so I'm just setting up my camera. Thank you very much for that insightful presentation. We'll take questions later at the end of the webinar. To the audience, if you have questions, please use the chat function. We will take those questions at the end. Thank you very much for that. So now we're going to go on to Glenn Lazarus from ATS Network Management. Over to you, Glenn.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining today. I'm excited to be on the call with you and also excited to hear Olumide and his experience and leading us through some of the challenges that everyone is facing when it comes to cloud adoption or where to go and how to do it and the way to do it best. So I'm excited to be part of this call today. Can you see my my screen, my presentation?
Yes, you can see it.
Great.
Yes.
So, I think that Olumide has identified some of the essential items that one cannot take into account while dealing with an enterprise environment. And while you're dealing with an enterprise environment, one of the hot topics that are being debated today is observability. And for me, the question is observability just another way of, getting a different view of the same information? Or is there some real value add that we're bringing to the table to ensure that organizations are running more efficiently and more effectively? And in saying that, I think Olumide already identified some of the key points that I'll be talking to today. And one of them is the fact that, yes, people and organizations have legacy systems. They have moved hurriedly into the cloud, learned some or burned some along the way, learned and burnt, moved very quickly because of COVID or had to push information into the cloud, and are suddenly having to deal with the ramifications of all these things that have taken place. So that's why, in my opinion, I think that observability is becoming more and more important. And yes, there's so many points that we can talk to, from what Olumide had to say. But let me touch on a couple of the key areas that I think are important for the discussion today. I think to start off with, what is the difference between monitoring and observability? One of the key factors to me is the fact that monitoring is almost, kind of looking at your watch and keeping an eye on the time. For example, let's take this presentation. Well, this presentation was set to start off at, depending on where you are, 12 o'clock in some countries and 11 in others, and maybe 1 in other countries. But if your time zone is set wrong, then maybe you're not going to be on time, because there's no intelligence built into a watch. All it is there is a simple alert or just a simple tracking mechanism. It doesn't add any additional value. And it's only with human intervention that you can actually resolve or go forward and make sure that complex things are brought together. Unlike observability. Observability is like looking through a telescope at the stars. You can see the entire solar system. Oh, did I say solar winds? Solar system with, you can see Orion's belt. You can see absolutely everything depending on where you are in the solar system. But you can see the patterns and you can detect anomalies, and you've got the real big picture. You're not just seeing one aspect of the solar system. When you look through that telescope, you can see absolutely everything. And that's part of what we're talking to today. And that's where observability builds. But without visibility, observability and monitoring are both very, very inadequate. Like Olamide said, if you have data centers in different countries across the world, well, if you lose connectivity, you're in trouble. So connectivity, observability, visibility, and monitoring are all kind of coming together under that big observability platform where we can see absolutely everything. It's visibility, monitoring, and observability become the essential tool for managing enterprise environments. So what are the kind of limitations that we talk about when we look at network monitoring? And I think network monitoring offers limited contextual information and often makes it difficult to make decisions. Yes, you can make long-term decisions, but strategic decisions that you need to arrive at based on information being presented at any one time often can be short-sighted. We also have inadequate alerts, and you also get many triggers that may be based on false positives, creating what we call alert fatigue, and Praneel will touch on that a little bit later. And then some of the most difficult things, the blind spots, things that are not being detected, things that haven't been pre-coded to be able to look out for. Because let's face it, monitoring says, I can only monitor what I understand or what I expect to see. Anything outside of that is probably going to be discarded and left behind. Olamide had a lot, had looked at this particular slide, and we hadn't had a chat before, but I think what's important is what Olamide had to say about where the technology landscape is today and digital transformation. I think that, if we look at the landscape, digital transformation has moved dramatically, and we find that, there's so many more connections to the internet. People are working from home. There's cloud-based applications that have moved from on-prem into the cloud. There's also pure SaaS-based applications. There are on-prem servers. There are branch offices. There are data centers populated all over the world. And this interconnectivity between so many devices and so many different worlds that have suddenly come together means that we have a hybrid cloud environment that needs to be operational 24/7. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of databases being integrated or already running inside these very complex environments. And do we know what they're doing? Do we know how efficient they're running? We have things like SD-WAN, and we have all different newer technologies that are being adopted. And at the same time, we need to make sure that our DevOps, our Cloud Ops, our AIOps teams, and our SecOps teams, and that's something that another point that Olumide brought up, is things like compliance. Without our SecOps teams being involved, is compliance really being looked after at the same time? It's all part of the same digital transformation. What took place in this very technical environment with a mix of all sorts of technologies is that everything became fairly siloed. And many organizations had to have a number of different tools in order to manage this complex environment, and not so simple to get root cause analysis led to poor service delivery and also high costs with lower productivity. So what are the customer challenges that we're facing? As I said, number one, tool sprawl. Because you have so many different technologies, and some of these technologies might be providing their own management solutions or management engines, you need to have skills to maintain those monitoring solutions. So you have issues with multiple skills and everybody having to have different level of knowledge based on the product that you're using to monitor. Also, multiple information sources, very complex, and also not feeding information to a central console. We also have business services distributed across hybrid cloud environments, presenting unique challenges from troubleshooting and optimizing, because we need to be efficient all the time. And then obviously the fact that there are so many alerts just being pushed out all the time. And we know that that is one of the key reasons why people get alert fatigue and then stop looking at those alerts and only solve the problems that people are screaming the loudest about. I'm sure you've all had that kind of experience. The person who shouts loudest is the one who gets the quickest response. I think that's kind of, the lifestyle we lead today, because things are moving so fast. And obviously the last one, which is also so important, is the fact that we have SLAs that need to be provided for all the time. And these SLAs need to ensure that we're constantly providing the best provision of solutions and our technology providing constant 24/7 availability. So if I look at the foundation for observability, monitoring is one of those components which is vital to the success of observability. What is the difference? Monitoring is very much reactive. What has actually happened in my environment, in my enterprise? Kind of much like, I like to think of it as like an accounting system, because accounting systems are, what happened yesterday? What happened historically? Yes, we sold so much, we invoiced, we took so much, we did so many transactions, and that's what took place yesterday. But are we able to predict and look at what's going on right this very second, and what is going to take place in the coming day, months, years? And can we ensure that everything's running efficiently? And that's kind of where I think the differentiating factor is between monitoring and observability. Monitoring is kind of the historic approach. It always showed us and alerted, whereas observability is much more proactive, explaining why something's happening and provides insights into what's going on right throughout the enterprise stack. What is my system doing? It collects, enriches, and monitoring of data. It's not just static log files. It's bringing all the disparate data together to solve some of the biggest business dilemmas and problems that we face from a technology and digital transformation environment every second of the day. So what are the key components of observability? Number one, like we did in network monitoring, it's logs, recording all the information to use and to alert and to pull all the information together. But it's got to go way beyond that. Those logs need to be interrogated, and we need to detect anomalies. Anomaly detection is a vital part of what observability provides to the stack. It provides an essential environment to be able to troubleshoot quickly and efficiently, and also reduce the mean time to remediation. Matrices provide a way of tracking the performance of our systems over time. They can be used to forecast trends and identify issues before they become critical. Like I said, going back to comparing it to the kind of accounting system, we're now saying, yes, we're accounting for what we've done in our technology platform as it is now, but I can also predict and look into the future because I know what bandwidth I have. I know how big the databases are growing. I know how much, how many transactions are going to take place at specific times of the day. And we can make sure that these systems are catered for based on the matrices and being able to ensure that our critical systems run 24/7 without fail. And then obviously things like traces and detailed records of flow requests through the system that can be used to pinpoint these issues because they are very complex in a distributed environment. Like in the slide I showed you before, where we had these branch offices and different data centers around the world collating and presenting data and making sure that we run efficiently. Alerts and triggers are obviously foundation of being able to ensure our conditions and our service levels are being attended to and ensure that they're being delivered all the time. Teams need to be aware and their attention needs to be made up for what's going on and how they're approaching it. So key differences are observability is a much more dynamic approach. It's facilitating dynamic monitoring and helping network managers to formulate effective responses to changing scenarios and understand them while it's happening. Not wait for a monthly report or a weekly or daily report. We can see real time what is happening. And observability collects all this rich data, all this granular information. It will bring it together, it will prioritize, and gives you focus and simplifies the view of the critical issues that need to be provided. Obviously, communication is a vital point of it. If we miss information, if we miss out on our alerting, if we miss out on the communications, then we are missing the point because our people and our teams do not have real-time information. And the key to this is obviously customer satisfaction, because yes, we can have great systems, but if our customers, if our users are not satisfied and our users are not getting the right platforms to ensure that systems are running efficiently, then we have failed as technology professionals. We have to ensure that these systems are running efficiently all the time. So the benefits of root cause analysis of observability is obviously root cause analysis, mean time to be able to resolve problems as quickly as possible and ensure that there are fewer network and enterprise problems across our enterprises. Improved collaboration. This is really one of the most important aspects, because if we look at our different teams, DevOps, SecOps, all the different components, each one of them have been working in silos for way too long. We believe that it's vital that these professionals have information at their fingertips regardless of their key focus areas, and it should all be coming from one simple environment where you can see everything. Yes, everybody has their go-to product which they feel comfortable with, but as an enterprise you need to have greater visibility. So to ensure that you have better customer experience, observability enables network managers and Exco to respond to changing customer needs real time and leading to a better customer experience. Another very important aspect of it is resilience. Observability enhances network resilience by enabling teams to identify and resolve key issues quickly, efficiently, reducing downtime and increasing service uptime, which is what us as IT professionals want to do. Using actionable insights, machine learning, and artificial intelligence to interrogate and bring this information to us visibly very quickly. But at the same time, let's not forget that yes, machine learning and AI are very important, but it also is creating additional overheads on our enterprises, because we need the power, we need the bandwidth, we need the capability to be able to provide these AI platforms to our end users as well. And finally, something that Olamide alluded to as well, not only compliance, but better security. Observability helps detect and respond to security threats, ensuring networks stay secure and protected all the time. All of these components need to come together in one environment. We cannot have any of these running independently in silos. If so, we are failing the objectives. So why is observability so essential for enterprise management? Modern enterprise systems are increasingly complex, like we've spoken about. All those different environments that need to come together. There's such a spread of work from home, work from the coffee shop, work from all these different places. Are they secure? We need to make sure these complex environments and data centers, whether they be on-prem, hybrid cloud, private cloud, public cloud, are all available 24/7. But as we provide these systems, so technology is using up and crunching all the additional capability we provide within minutes and seconds. So we need to make sure that as the desktops, as the devices, and as our users are connecting and their machines and their work environment is becoming more efficient and faster, at the same time, we need to make sure that our networks can keep up with this. We can't provide better hardware on the desktop, but they're not in keeping and providing throughput at the enterprise environment and the enterprise network as well. And then finally, reliability. Modern enterprise systems are critical to the success of the business. Poor performance or downtime can result in lost revenue, decreasing customer satisfaction, or even legal liability. If we can't provision our data for our customers and they're down, that can mean thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars being lost per second because they're not able to transact. So what is it that we can do to provide and make this platform through observability give you what you need? We talk about SolarWinds platform providing that visibility into the universe where we're able to see exactly what's going on all the time. So we have the ability to bring in our cloud services, our database performance, integration of security and compliance, application performance monitoring, network and infrastructure monitoring and tracking, and obviously the digital user experience, because as I mentioned, it's one thing if we just continue to enhance the workstation that somebody's running on, but if it doesn't enhance the user experience, then it doesn't help throwing hardware at the problem. We need to make sure that we understand where the issues are. SolarWinds provides one of the industry's only unified monitoring and observability service management platforms with integration into security and database performance, accelerating transformation, combating complexity with ease, fueling innovation for your different teams, maximizing agility to be able to be efficient and agile, because from a digital transformation point of view, we need to ensure that our systems are agile and able to adopt as things change. We need to minimize the cost and risk. And we have to provide a single pane of glass, one platform, one observability platform to show absolutely everything. And going one step further, it doesn't matter where any of these solutions are sitting. So if you have solutions sitting in the cloud, if it's sitting in on-prem, if some of it's on-prem and some of it's in the cloud, hybrid cloud and the databases and all these different infrastructures, we bring that together in one place. So we bring the monitoring into observability, integrating our IT ops and bringing all of that together in one platform. But a very, very key point is the fact that to us, it doesn't make a difference what vendors you're utilizing in your environment. So if you're using any of the big players or even smaller players that might not be listed as standard technology, we're able to bring in and monitor and poll and alert and provide observability for every type of device out there on your network. So it doesn't matter what layer and what vendor you use, we can provide statistics and information directly from those devices. So whether you're running Cisco, Palo Alto, Juniper, or Avaya, or Huawei, or HP, or IBM, or any brand, or any specific vendor that you've been using for years or moving to in the future, we can bring that all together in one single pane of glass where you have complete and total visibility of what's happening 24/7. I stumbled across a statistic which was quite frightening to me, produced by Forbes. They analyzed these cloud migrations, and they identified that 1/3 of cloud migrations fail outright. 1/3? That is astounding. If you think of the fact that 1 in 3 cloud migrations do never see the light of day. They're just deployed and cannot be released for their customers to utilize. 25% of organizations meet their migration deadlines. 25%. What happened to the other 75? What are they just dragging on? Goalposts being moved all the time, or should I say rugby posts? These are things that affect business day-to-day production. And then 90% of CIOs have experienced failed or disrupted cloud-based data migration projects. So we're saying 10% or less have been successful. The others have all had major issues along the way. So what is it that we need to do in order to overcome that? Well, I think the key is to make sure that our observability platforms are providing efficiencies and making sure that when you choose an observability product, that it covers every aspect of the environment. So whether you need network infrastructure products, monitoring, security or compliance products that you want to keep track of, or the application performance and the database performance, whether you're using things like Kubernetes or Oracle, any kind of engine, you need to be able to get the visibility and you need to see all of it. Or if your journey is from on-prem into hybrid cloud, or if you're starting a completely new platform and you're going full observability in the cloud only, so native cloud, we cater for that capability as well. The important thing is to provide a seamless migration and simplified hybrid experience regardless of where you are in your digital transformation. And the key to this is the power of observability is not only providing a dashboard that shows you what happened yesterday and predicting what happens in the future, but also the ability to configure, observe, analyze, predict, act, and finally, to remediate. Because without the remediation, we're not able to solve our problems. And adding to that is the security and compliance component as well. So SolarWinds basically addresses it from a holistic point of view. We provide what we call our 2 or 3 different versions of the solution today. Hybrid cloud observability in essentials and advanced. And the difference here is depending on the size of your infrastructure and how much you need, we give you the capability to do everything you need to. So whether it be from network monitoring, server and application monitoring, log analysis, VoIP, user device tracking, all these different components can be brought together in one single pane of glass. And you don't have to license it in different ways. It's a matter of just saying, well, what I need today is the following few components, and you can get up and running within minutes and start the discovery process of mapping out your network and being sure that your platforms are efficient and running effectively. And as you grow and as you need more, so you add and upgrade the licensing. But fundamental to all of this is the fact that we are a network performance monitoring and observability company. And the last thing in the world that we want to do is put additional overhead onto your network. So we have to ensure that the way we capture your data and provision and give reporting and alerting is ensuring that there's as little impact on the enterprise infrastructure as possible. And this can be done through our additional polling engines. We have additional web engines and web servers to make sure that we collate the data. And obviously, we have an enterprise console as well. So you can bring multiple dashboards from anywhere in the world together. And at the same time, also making sure that we have a failover solution so that you never miss a single second of how your enterprise is running, and making sure that you have complete and total visibility of the enterprise. So I think that's as much as I'm going to talk about for now. I will take questions a little bit later, and I will hand back to Abby. Or yeah, Abby, are you going to take Abe? Are you going to take this?
Hi, Glenn.
Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Thanks, Abe.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go straight into Prenil's presentation. And then after Prenil, we'll have a Q&A session. Please keep posting your questions in the chat area, and we will take them at the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Prenil.
Thank you, Abe. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you guys are. Thank you for joining again. I'm going to do a demo on the HCO solution that Glenn's been chatting about. Just let me know when you see my screen. So Glenn alluded to a single pane of glass earlier, and this is the solution. If everybody can see the screen, all good?
Yep.
Great stuff. Okay, so this is the single pane of glass that we aim to provide customers with. As you can see, we have a sort of widget approach, which can be customized depending on, which department or which users are logging onto your platform. As you've seen from the previous screens, we are, a multi-vendor solution, whether it's, Cisco, Microsoft, Huawei. We can monitor all of them. We use different protocols, things like SNMP, APIs, that sort of thing. Certain technologies within HCO obviously give you deeper visibilities. We have SD-WAN technologies from Cisco in terms of their Apex solution. We have VeloCloud as well as Viptela integration as well. So that's good. We also have mapping available, obviously at a glance. So you're able to see, the status of your networks. We use a traffic light system, typically green being up, yellow being in a warning, and red being in a down or critical state. So as you can see on this map, our US region is in a red state. So we can click down further into this to see what's happening there. And these maps can obviously be customized. They are sort of dynamic. We generate them sort of automatically. You don't have to, manually do your maps. It's automatically mapped out within SolarWinds. So while this map is loading, we can see our different regions, for example. So we've got our east region to west region, and these are the connections I spoke about. These are sort of automatically mapped out between your devices. So we use, different protocols for this, things like SNMP, CDP, different protocols to actually map. And then you can actually click into this and you'll be able to see your utilization between your links. So this is a platform feature, Orion Maps. This is great for, customers that have a NOC view or require a NOC view to be presented on a large screen, to have an at a glance view of their network operations. So pretty good. Another feature that I'd like to show you is sort of dynamic grouping. So as you can see here, we've got a grouping section here. This is great to have, organizational devices. So we can see, for example, we have our MPLS circuits in here. And We recommend dynamic grouping, obviously, because there's much less maintenance required. As you onboard devices, they'll automatically be added into these groups. And we also have, statistics on these groups, so we can do a availability chart for group members, etc. So that is a good platform feature there. The next thing I want to show you is perf stack. So this is a platform feature. As you can see, what we are tracking here is WAN errors and discards on a specific link. So this is showing me WAN errors and discards over the last 24 hours. So you can see there's been a spike between this particular time frame on transmit discards. So this would be very useful for your network team on troubleshooting transmit discards. But any entity that we monitor in SolarWinds will, or we can create a a perf stack graph. So if you're doing any server monitoring, for example, I'll show you how quickly it is to actually create this graph. So if I jump into performance analysis, you can see we are tracking CPU load, average memory usage on this particular server. And these sort of dashboards can be shared within your team. So if you're troubleshooting a specific slowdown in a particular server, we can see spikes here in this particular area, and we can drill down into this to get more detail. So this is very useful. It also gives you the ability to do real-time polling. Just jump back to the main page. Just looking at some of our other widgets available. We also do hardware health tracking. So this would be, hardware on your network devices, servers in terms of power supply, fans, any critical hardware events. As you can see, we have a Nexus 7K that's in a critical state. So by simply drilling down into the device, we'd be able to, get an idea of which specific hardware component is in a critical state. So while this loads, and it's not only about clicking into the device to check status, we can get alerts on this. So as you can see, there's a issue on the power supply. Just looking further into it, power supply 2 is in a critical state. So as I mentioned, this can be turned into an alert. So anybody dealing with, hardware will receive an alert to say, power supply is in a critical state. And these alerts are brought together in a single view as well. So if we go to the alert section and just search, for example, hardware, you'll be able to see this triggered at a specific time. It was the power supply on the 7K, and whoever's dealing with it can obviously come in and acknowledge this, put in their notes, part is on order, for example, and acknowledge this. Acknowledgement is great, especially for your reporting, so you'll be able to see who's acknowledged, what time they acknowledge, etc. So we'll just jump back to the dashboard. One other feature I'd like to talk about is service incidents. This is particularly important for automatic ticketing, opening up tickets when certain events occur on the network. We don't only want to be relying on engineers receiving emails, because in most cases some of these emails are missed, etc. So if it's opened up on a service desk, it will get immediate attention. We have native integration with ServiceNow, as well as SolarWinds' own service desk called SolarWinds SWSD. And this automatically opens a ticket. And if the incident is resolved, it has two-way integration, so it will automatically close the ticket. These are not the only two we integrate with. We do have some other integration with, things like Remedy, and even if it's not listed, there are workarounds in order to open up tickets with your service desk.
Neil, one of the things that often comes up in discussions with customers is the fact that there's so many alerts. How do engineers deal with that today? Because alert fatigue is one of the biggest problems.
No, that's a very good question. I think two ways. HCO has a feature called anomaly alerts, which you touched on earlier, and this basically looks at alerts and it sorts it out so you don't get alerted all the time, only in an anomalous situation, out of the norm. And it's got that machine learning built in to automatically determine that. The second way is to fine tune your alerts. So we have a number of alerts out of the box for things like CPU, memory, disk, for example. So fine tuning, by that I mean, only alert when it's sustained over a certain time period. You don't want to be getting alerts when a CPU spikes to 80, then comes back down, then to 90, etc. It must be sustained over a period of time. So that's just two ways in which we can, eliminate alert fatigue.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, so the next platform feature I think is really great. This falls under the network banner, and it's called NetPath Services. So NetPath Services gives us source to destination visibility on, whether it's cloud, whether it's on premise. It works particularly well for cloud services. I know most of us are using, Office 365. I'll just use that as an example. So as you can see, if I just click into the New York office, for example, we are showing data from a probe within our network. As you can see, we have a visual graph of hops within our network, and then obviously going out to the external network. And this is great because it doesn't require any agents. Obviously, we require an agent on the source device. But all of this other information that you see here is sort of proprietary, built into the NetPath service, and it scrapes information off the internet. For example, if you're having issues on this particular node, I'll just go back to have a look and see if we see any problematic services here.
It's nice when there are no problems sometimes, isn't it? Great when you don't see problems on the network.
Definitely. Green is good. We like green. Green is good. So this particular path not so green. As you can see here, we've got some warning and critical thresholds that have been met. So if I click into this particular critical threshold, we can see, okay, within our network, no issues. But as soon as it branches out on the ISP side, if we click into that, let's get a view on that. Let's just center this. We can see, hope you guys can see this. There are some nodes within the ISP network that are experiencing some latency. So if we click on this particular node, we can see it's a Microsoft-owned device. These are the contact details, and the latency is out of threshold. Same with these other devices here. So this is really great to troubleshoot and stop the blame game on what's happening, whether it's inside your network or whether it's with the ISP. Another example of how NetPath works with a module in SolarWinds called Configuration Manager, just to help with mean time to resolution. I look at this NetSuite as an example. This is a cloud service being used by SolarWinds. And if we wait for the path to load there, we'll see that, just refresh that 1 sec. We'll see that we had connectivity at a specific point in time. So 9:49, everything was green, very good. And then just a minute later or 10 minutes later, we had no connectivity to NetSuite. And this could take hours to resolve, but because of the integrated NCM or configuration manager component, we're able to identify that there was a config change that happened between 6:47 and 9:20. So by simply clicking on this config change, because we keep a copy of your running and startup configs, we're able to see exactly what the change was. So if I keep scrolling down here, it should highlight a change. So this was a route, a IP route that was added to the config of the device. So you could obviously just roll back to a previous good configuration, and it would restore your connectivity to NetSuite. So this is a really good example of, how combining multiple products together, and that's the benefit of HCO. All the products that you see are listed are included in HCO. So it just helps with mean time to resolution.
Neil, how easy is it to roll back that change?
Very simple. I mean, we've got within NCM, so this is the configuration manager component, and we could create a job, or we could go to configuration management, and we could have a script. The script is ready because we already have sort of a backup of our network devices, and it would just be a matter of selecting the script and running it from there. So within minutes, you can be up and running to your previous known good configuration. Another feature, just to go through this quickly, is your top 10. Top 10 basically spotlights issues within your network, whether it's CPU, memory, disk, latency, utilization, etc. So ideally, you would want this top 10 to be as green as possible, obviously. But here you can see that, we've got 100% CPU load on some devices. So this would be particularly useful for server admins, for example. If they click into their top 10, they would see all the servers that they're responsible for. They could, drill down into these and see exactly what is causing the CPU load on that particular server. Some other intelligence built into HCO is capacity. So we collect the data, we do predictive analysis. So for example, if we look at, capacity issues, so these CPUs on these nodes, you can see it's expected to be in a warning state within 8 weeks, critical within 2 weeks. So you could obviously, deploy more resources, etc. So this is all sort of built into the system to assist with that. One other thing I'd like to show is the hybrid hybrid component within HCO and how it brings together all of this into a single pane of glass. We've got, as you can see from this map here, we've got resources within Azure, and we've got our, devices on-prem. So what's important is, Olumide mentioned earlier, is network bandwidth. So from this graph or from this map, we can see that we've got a VNet from our on-prem router, a VNet directly into Azure. So if there's any connectivity issues here, it would show up on this particular link. But all of these interconnected links is sort of automatically drawn, and that's really the power of HCO. It's able to intelligently draw these links, so you'll be able to see that, obviously being in a warning state, some trigger is, whether it's latency or CPU, memory, disk, etc., is triggered. So this is a great view to show, hybrid cloud. Another thing I'd like to show, and it's something that we actively driving, is IP address management. We try and empower organizations with, moving away from traditional Excel-based IP address management. And as you can see, it's as simple as just importing your subnets and seeing what's available. So these are all your subnets within your organization. It shows you what's available, what's used. We can click into any of these subnets, and you'll be able to get a nice view of, what's connected. down to MAC address, down to vendor, etc. And because we integrate with DNS, if something's available and you want to reserve it for a specific device, you can, make the changes directly in SolarWinds, and this would write the entry directly to your DNS server. So obviously with the correct credentials, but yeah, it provides that two-way integration with DNS and DHCP. Another great feature is
maybe we can just ask in the chat while you're showing Pranil is, can we get an idea of how many people use Excel as their IP address management console? Maybe you can just pop in your chat and just say yes or no. Carry on, Pranil.
Good question. Interested to see the results. Another good feature is request an IP address. So this is particularly useful in large organizations where you've got multiple engineers requesting IPs for, new devices. So for example, this is the screen. Let's say, for example, an engineer is deploying 5 new workstations and, they require 5 IP addresses. They come in here, put in the number, put in their details. I'll just put in my details there. Just put that in there. And then next, you'll be presented with all your subnets available for IP addresses. So say, for example, they're looking for users on the first floor. You can see there's 231 IPs available. We click on next, and you'll be able to put in, host names, MAC addresses, etc., and then request IP addresses. We have a IP admin and we have an IP requester. This would be a requester's view. Once they request IP addresses, the admin will receive an alert. And what that looks like, if I go to the alert screen, I'll just type in the IP address. So you'll see an alert. This will come in the form of an email or a Teams message saying IP address request, requested by Helen Fisher. If I click into this, you'll be able to see which range they requested IP addresses from, and approve the request or deny the request. So as you can see here, that's the IP address request. You might want to make some changes depending on which subnet they select here, but you can deny or process the request. So this is a very, simplified way of dealing with IP requests, and this is all built into IP Address Manager. Lastly, I'd like to show virtualization. Everybody's running some form of virtualization, whether it's Hyper-V, VMware ESX, or Nutanix. We have a great solution built into sort of monitor and manage all the way from vCenter down to guest machines. There we can see our data centers, our clusters, and then we can see all the virtual machines hanging off there. The intelligence is built into the sprawl option. Glenn mentioned earlier things about things like tool sprawl. So this eliminates, something like VMware tools where you can make changes directly to the VM itself. So over time, we collect metrics on these, and it's suggesting that this VM is not very active. You can reduce the CPU from 4 to 1, and then you can go ahead and change the resources directly from SolarWinds. So this is really powerful, eliminating multiple tools, etc. And yeah, I think that was about it.
Maybe just to add to that on the VM manager, I think one of the key aspects of that, Pranil, is it's not just about monitoring, but it's also real-time changes based on critical issues that might take place. Maybe you can show us a bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So as part of the alerts, we have different sort of tags to whether you get an email. So if a particular example, let's just go in here and we'll search for CPU. Let's just see if anything comes up here. So this particular alert is high VM utilization. So if this particular alert is coming up a lot, one of the things we can do instead of just sending an email out is to change the actual resources of the VM, and that's sort of one of the triggers. So if we just go into CPU, high VM CPU utilization, if we edit this alert, we can see that we have a trigger which probably just sends an email, but we can create a trigger to actually change those resources. So currently we logging it to the event log, but we can add an action to actually, change CPU resources. So this is that, next step of being proactive and, you know.
I think that's so important as part of observability, is the fact that you don't need intervention. These are self-managed capabilities. As long as you have the credentials, as Praneel mentioned, you're able to, like Praneel showed, if you need to provision additional CPU or additional memory and make sure that there is uninhibited performance for our customers.
100%. I've got one thing I'd like to show as well. It's called environment. This is built into the platform as well. So it comes down to the mean time to resolution and stopping finger pointing, network team blaming the server team, etc. So this is what it looks like. Looks quite messy, but with a few clicks, what we can do is spotlight into any issues. So if you look at this side, we've got an option to view all critical nodes. So if I apply this filter, I'll basically take away everything that's, green and sort of in a warning state and bring you this view. And this view you can use to sort of troubleshoot. So if I click on the show names option, then we can see our servers. So if I click on this particular NoSQL, for example, which is the demo that we are viewing, if I click into it, it will bring everything that's related. With another click, spotlight, what that does is take away all the noise and show me exactly what's related to NoSQL. So we start from the top. We can see that we have a few applications running on that server, some of them in a critical state. But going down, we can see that there's some issues on the host that the server is sitting on. So this is sitting in a warning state. Further down, if we go to the cluster, we can see, okay, this is 69% memory use. Maybe it's not that. Going down to the data stores, this is the storage level. So possibly there's some issues on the storage. So if I mouse over on this particular HP, we can see that the vendor status code is degraded. So this could mean everything that is connected or on top of the storage, is not performing as it should. So a ticket can be opened up with storage, and this view can be easily shared with all your different teams, just to help with mean time to resolution.
For me, Praneel, I think that's one of the really high-powered capabilities of the solution, because you're able to focus on where that problem area is so quickly. For DBAs or for SQL analysts to be able to find where that issue is arising from, and then be able to get down to the granular level could take hours, days.
Yep. Definitely. And like I said, all of this can be shared via link. We support AD authentication, so anybody in the organization with an AD account, we can customize a view for them, or they can view shared resources.
And Praneel, just one last question, just from a enterprise visibility point of view, what in your opinion is one of the critical areas that you feel needs to be addressed through utilizing an observability tool?
So I would say, being able to identify critical devices. identifying what protocols they use. Can be various things, like servers, for example, are using agents. They could be using WMI. Network devices could be using SNMP. So identifying the protocols, in the cloud, we've got things like open telemetry, data, syslogs, etc. You know, having that information beforehand before deploying your solution is, really good advantage.
Brilliant. Now, one thing that often we talk to people about is the fact that a lot of these tools and a lot of the reason we have tool sprawl is the fact that there's a view that engineers put together, and they go and automatically discover the network, and after discovering the network, they create these maps and views. And it doesn't always match to what Exco or to what senior people require in their day-to-day requirement. An engineer wants to know exactly granular detail, what's going on, and be able to drill down. But from an Exco point of view, we're hearing something different. What do SolarWinds do to overcome that?
Yeah, 100%. I think you need to hit the nail on the head. Engineers want to see the nuts and bolts. They want to see all the granular data, like sort of these graphs and that sort of thing. In terms of Exco, they just need a high-level overview. And we've got a great feature in HCO called Modern Dashboards. And Modern Dashboards brings together, multiple KPIs. So if I just filter out modern dashboards, we can have a look at the executive summary. And this is sort of built into the platform as well. I think this is probably something that's helpful to Exco. They just want to see at a high level, maybe connected users, availability. This is quite important. Dropping below a certain number. The status of critical components, like Active Directory, etc. But we could take it a step further and, customize a dashboard that's specific to them, specific to their requirements. So, yeah.
Do you think that the color coding is what makes it really exciting for Exco or for executives? They just like nice color charts
Yeah.
and nothing else. Is that what makes it great for them, or is it showing something meaningful?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think colors are great, especially green. Nobody likes to see red, but yeah, definitely.
Maybe just show me that dashboard again, if you don't mind. One thing that triggered in my mind the moment I saw it is I did see a little bit of red. And the moment you see red, well, we know things are not good. But
Yeah,
like I see server backups. Is it server backups that are red there?
correct. Yeah, server backup. So with the help of the application monitor, we're able to track, certain triggers or certain applications in the environment. So this particular one would be a server backup. So that's within the last 24 hours. Yeah.
Now, I mean, a lot of people on the call most probably didn't realize that you can pull such granular detail in a window like this from a SolarWinds observability point of view, because I think a majority of people, when they think about what we do in network performance monitoring and observability, think about, is the network working or isn't it? And here we're talking about things like server backups that might have taken place during the night, and how are we collecting and collating that data to be able to give a real-time experience?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I mean, if we look at SAM as a whole, we're not only monitoring services and processes, we take it a step further with APIs. So we can
Praneel, sorry, when
API.
you talk about Sam, you're
Yep.
talking about Uncle Sam, or you're talking about the receiver of revenue? Server and
Yeah. Yeah, SAM server and application monitor. That's it. So as I mentioned, we can pull in or hook into any API from external systems. And like you saw there, backups is, one of those particular metrics.
And is there a database performance indicator in that dashboard as well?
Yeah, so if we look at SQL, I'll just take SQL as an example. We have a dedicated SQL Server dashboard, and what this brings together is we've got a DPA, which is a separate product. We can sort of interface with DPA to bring these metrics into the single unified dashboard that we speak about. So as you can see, this is a map, a Rhine map, like we saw earlier. We can dive into these databases, and then you'll be able to see, at more granular detail exactly what's happening on that particular SQL server.
Very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if we go a step further, if we look at our database summary, instead of just services, we'll be able to see, this is invaluable data for DBA in terms of wait times and locks and all of that. So bigger bars indicate bigger wait times. So you'll be able to physically click into these bars and see exactly where which queries are using the most amount of resources, etc. And we also provide recommendations in terms of fine-tuning these queries to run more efficiently.
And this is all real-time integration into the core dashboard as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So I've got one other question. Maybe I can just get an idea in the chat as well. Possibly, are there any DBAs or anybody who has to manage a database? If you can just put DBA or database in the chat, we'd appreciate to hear your response. If you can just post that, we'd appreciate it. Great, Pranil. Are we going to hand back to Abe?
Abe, yeah, thanks, Glenn.
Yes. Hi, the screen is a bit dark now, but there we go.
Are you enjoying on load shedding?
Yeah, there we go. You can see me again. All right. Thank you, Pranil and Glenn. That was quite detailed and insightful. Thank you very much. And we've got people on the line from Nigeria, from Kenya, from Ghana. Thank you all for staying with us so far. And we still have about 10 minutes to take questions. So if you have any questions, please put those questions in the chat area so we can ask our experts to answer them. For now, I'm just going to take a question that one of the attendees asked earlier. I know Pranil responded to it, but maybe he'd like to go into it a bit in a bit of detail. And the question was around security and privacy. As you know, security and privacy is a major issue now. As Olumide alluded to, you have to consider things like POPI and GDPR from a privacy perspective. And so how does hybrid cloud observability and in particular with your SolarWinds solution contribute to enhancing security and privacy and compliance in a hybrid cloud setup?
Okay.
You did answer it a bit, but maybe you'd like to go into it a bit more detail.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. And I mean, security is a hot topic at the moment. We've got two products that tackle security. So the first one that's built into hybrid cloud observability is Network Configuration Manager. And we have built-in compliance for specific bodies like PCI, HIPAA, SOX, Cisco, CISP, etc. And what this does is, look at compliance of your network devices to see how secure they are. In fact, I might just actually share my screen again just to give you an example of this. So under the configuration option, we have a compliance option. So just wait for that to load. As you can see, these are the built-in compliancy reports that we have available. I'll just jump into a Cisco one as an example. So we've got our Cisco policy report. If I click into that, it should bring me a nice view where it's showing all my devices. And green obviously means in compliance. This means that this rule has not been set. So disable reverse telnet. There are 34 violations within my network. So some of them need remediation, some of them are fine. Simply clicking into this gives you an idea of what we are looking for here. So this particular line of code is not found within your network config. So you can execute the script directly from NCM in order to patch this up. So ideally, to be compliant with Cisco policy report, we can, apply these remediations directly from SolarWinds. And then the other thing, obviously, is utilizing protocols that are secure, things like SNMP version 3, encrypted agents, that use TLS encryption, and things like multi-factor authentication all aid in securing the platform.
Okay.
Don't know if I've missed out anything there. Glenn, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I think adding on to that, not only in the HCO platform, we also have something called Access Rights Manager. That allows us to build a complete platform of who has what access to what with complete forensic audit capabilities. So you have a track record, you have provisioning and complete workflow management of the environment as well. Then we have another add-on which is called Identity Monitor. This is to ensure from a dark place point of view where information has been leaked, and we can monitor and alert on that to show when data has actually been leaked into the dark web. So we have a number of different add-ons that add value to this component. And also we have our standard SIC solution, so you can actually get your complete monitoring and alerting based on the the log integration in the system as well. So there you have a standalone security operations management center as well.
Yes. Hi, I hope you can hear me. Someone said my voice was a bit faint, so I hope this is better. Okay. There's a question that just came in, and it is, what version of SolarWinds can one enjoy these features? So are all these features available only on the latest version or previous version?
So it's available on HCO Essentials or HCO Advanced. The Essentials gives you probably 60% of the features that we've seen. We can probably share a product matrix to show which features are included with what. But the Advanced incorporates NetFlow, configuration management, and virtualization management as well.
Okay, great. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. Okay. Let me take, and any of you can take this. We've got CTOs and IT managers and other people on the line. What are the factors they need to take into consideration when deciding on which observability platform to implement in the organization? Glenn, maybe you could start with that.
Sure. I think key factor is number one, what's the goal of the organization? Where are they coming from a digital transformation point of view? And the reason I would say I ask that question is it an environment where we're moving from on-prem to a hybrid environment or purely a cloud environment? So one needs to decide on which product is best suited to the environment, making sure that you have the right solution for your right digital transformation. It's pointless getting, if you're 95% on-prem, it's pointless getting a cloud monitoring solution only. One needs to take that into account and make sure that you can grow with the organization. The other thing that's vital to it is ensure that you are not limited in terms of vendor capability. So are you able to bring in all the data across from different vendors, regardless of what brand of router or hardware you're running, that you've got everything visible in one place. And something that's always on the front of mind of maybe some of the CFOs that are on this call is it's got to be budget friendly. And how budget friendly is it, depending on what requirements you have and what your end goal is, and that's vital. And finally, I think the other point is, aside from just being budget friendly, it's got to match the capabilities of the solution that you're working with. So wherever you go, you need to make sure that you have the right solution and monitoring, overcoming the issue of this facility where people are working in silos, bringing it together, one view. And when I say one view, for me, vital today is that our senior executives get the best value for money from the solution at the same time. It's not only an engineering tool. This is enterprise grade capability for the executive through to the service engineer.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Okay, we are at it's 1:30 here, which should be 12:30 in Nigeria and Ghana. So let's just have closing comments from all the speakers. You can start, Glenn, and then we can go to Prenil, and then Olumide, if you have a few words to say, we can close with you.
Great. Well, front of mind for me is always, what is the user experience? And as IT professionals, we're always trying to make sure that our user experience is exceptional. We cannot allow the hardware platforms or our infrastructure platforms to let that down. And if we let our end users down where they feel that there's service degradation, to them, it doesn't matter. Praneel mentioned it earlier as well. Let's reduce the finger pointing. Let's reduce the blame game. It doesn't matter to the end user whether it's the network, the infrastructure, the database, the security, whether it's the application, whatever it may be. If there's service degradation at the end of the day, end users are dissatisfied, and all they do is point to the IT department or to the IT professional and say, "It's you guys." That's not acceptable anymore. Blame game and finger pointing, no place for that.
Great,
You,
thanks.
Glenn.
From my side, I think we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out. Our contact details will be sent to you after the session. I'd like to assist you with any POCs or demos. If you'd like to set up one-on-one sessions, please reach out and we can get started on that. Thanks.
Okay. Olumide, your closing comments?
Yeah, I would like to say that, despite the challenges with, that one would normally experience in maintaining a hybrid cloud infrastructure, I think it's still the way to go, right? Because the disadvantages actually outweigh the advantages actually outweigh the disadvantages, right? Because it gives a lot of flexibility in terms of the cloud strategy, right? You're able to also, maintain the compliance requirements, right? And you can realize the enormous advantages that that comes with you deploying your applications across multiple cloud platforms. So I think I will encourage every CTO on this and every IT professional here to consider the hybrid cloud strategy. That's my closing remark. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And from IT News Africa, we'd like to say thank you to ATS Network Management and our expert speakers today, Glenn, Prenil, Olumide. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And to all of you who took time out of your schedule to be here, thank you very much. And to find out about future events, physical events, and online events from IT News Africa, please visit itnewsafrica.com. And like Prenil said, after this session, in the next couple of days, look out for an email with a survey as well as contact details from ATS Network Management, so you can get hold of them if you need more information about their solutions. Thank you very much, and have a great day further. and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Great. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you all for joining.
Thanks,
Bye for
everyone.
now.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.